Okay, welcome back. So today what I want to start outlining for you is how to begin marker training with your dog. Now this is going to be a reward-based system, and we're going to be using food rewards to motivate the dog to give us the behavior that we want. It is the very best way to get a behavior in the dog. If you refer back to the video that I made earlier on consequences, how dogs learn, and being able to give out punishment, this is a way of reinforcing a behavior. So the motivation for the dog is to continue to do the behavior because he is getting a positive outcome. And then we will at times refer to the negative consequence that the dog is going to get when he is motivated to avoid the negative outcome of whatever behavior is that we're trying to get him to do. Okay, so this is the very best way to get a certain behavior out of a dog. This is Cooper. Believe it or not, Cooper has done a board and train with me in the past. He's a very kind of high energy, rambunctious dog, really excitable, as you can see. And he knows that I have food with me. So this is part of the motivation, the enticement that he shows me in order to kind of work. Now, when you do food reward-based training, what you want to do is follow the criteria for the kind of treats that we give the dogs. And they are this. Number one, they should be small. Okay, you don't want big chunks of treats to be able to feed the dog. Number two, they should be soft, so that when you put it into the dog's mouth, it's not a process of heavy chewing, it just goes down the hatch immediately. And number three, they should be smelly, kind of stinky. Some of these treats, depending on the kind of treat that you get, come in a variety of flavors: chicken, beef, so forth, and pork. And this really entices and motivates the dog. A dog is really super motivated by food, and the smell of the food is really going to ramp him or her up to follow along. So at this stage of the training, you want this to be enjoyable for them. Okay? So let's cover the very first thing, because this is a simple 3-step, sometimes 4-step process. This is what I'm doing right now is called luring the dog. Okay, so I have the treat in my hand. He is obviously keenly aware that there's a treat in my hand. And notice how I'm not touching him. I am putting it in my fist so that he cannot grab it out of my hand. And I am also placing it up to his nose. And because of that, he follows me around. So I am basically luring him from one position into another. This is important because if I want to get him into a certain position, such as a sit or a down, this is part of it. Now, some dogs can easily get into those positions. Other dogs need a little more coaxing, and you want to make sure that you are able to lure your dog. This is why where the smelly, stinky treat comes into play. Okay, so the other parts to the training and to getting this kind of behavior is a three-step process. Is you will give the dog the cue, or rather get the behavior at first, because I don't necessarily teach the cue until I am confident that the dog understands the behavior. So you get the behavior first, then you mark it, and then you reward it. Okay, so here we go. Good. Reward. Okay, so in this instance, all I want him to do is to sit. Okay, notice now, obviously he knows what sit means. But I don't, again, with a new and green dog, I don't necessarily name it. Because some dogs, believe it or not, just don't necessarily know what sit or down means. So I don't name it first. I lure the dog into a position. So here we go. I have the treat in my hand as a fist, and I do the wave motion up. Typically the dog, good, gets his butt into the ground, and then I mark it. Good. And reward. Okay? So my mark is good. It could be yes, it could be whatever word you want. Just stick with that word. Good. Okay, again, notice that I am not telling him to SIT. Good. It's all a little dance. I am luring him. Watch how I lure him off of the sit, and then I kind of get him back into a position that I want. Good. Okay? This is a means of teaching a dog without really speaking much. You can actually teach a deaf dog how to do any kind of behavior you want. Good. Okay, so now, always do this on a leash initially, because you want to make each attempt successful. Good. Good. Now the step is that I get the behavior, I mark it with a good, and I instantaneously give the reward. Timing is essential at this stage. So you want to make sure that the dog makes, again, this is the process of association. The dog forms the association between the behavior and the outcome to that behavior. In this instance is the food. And the way that he is going to understand and that kind of outcome is going to be clarified to him is by marking it. And this is no different than clicker training. If you've heard of clicker training in the past, the only difference is that the clicker is a small little box that sounds the same no matter what time of day, no matter what energy level or mood you're in. Your voice can fluctuate, so you want to make sure that your number one, your word, your cue is consistent, but you try to keep the same tone at all times with the dog. Good. So marking it is incredibly important, and this is also how I condition and add power to the word good. Good. Okay. So again, always on leash, 3 steps, get the behavior, good, mark it, and instantly reward, instantly. Now, when I've done this a handful of times and the dog does the behavior each and every time, then I can start to throw in the cue. And at this stage, you're going to add the 4th step, which is give the cue. You may also still lure the dog into the position, mark it, and reward. Sit, good, and reward. Sit, good, and reward. Let's go over here. Sit, good, reward. So if you do this again with the dog properly, it should be enjoyable, it should be fun, good. Your dog should be somewhat motivated for it. Good, good. And you want to practice this quite a bit. You want to get in a lot of drills, a lot of routine into this. Come here. And you want to do it on a leash. And when you feel your dog is fairly proficient with it, then you can kind of drop the leash and you can get the same kind of behavior from the dog. Here you go, you made out. Sit, good. Sit, good, good. Okay, let's go on to the next video.